Hello my Mercurial mercenaries. You might be saying to yourselves, surely Mercurial number 6, this is too soon for another time waster. Usually you space them out a bit. But I have, through factors unrelated to my personal I'm relegated to this studio. And as I've been relegated to the studio, I had to suddenly think, what can I do in this studio? And I have been working on an idea, a long-standing idea for the next Discover. And as only my Mercurial, devoted Mercurial followers, like we're the Church of Six here, the Church of Six, will know that I keep banging on about how I'm going to do a Discover of the Jimi Hendrix Experience, Are You Experienced? And I'm going to try something different with this one. It might not go down well, but I'm putting a lot of, well, I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to be putting a lot of effort into it. And I thought, what else could I do? Seems I'm trapped in here. I thought I could watch some Netflix. I've watched Making a Murderer, Series 2. Started watching House of Cards yesterday. I thought I could do The Haunting of Hill House, because Perfect 10 won't join in with me on that one. Or I've heard good words about the Castlevania series. I thought I could do that. But as is the way with Netflix, I spend more time flicking through Netflix than I do watching Netflix. And then, sorry, if you can hear like a jingling sound like it's Christmas, it's just my cat scratching. In fact, what happened was I bought him a new collar, and I chose to buy him a collar with a bow tie on it. And I'll show you him. Hang on. I know you don't like it. For some reason, you know that I'm filming, and you always kick off. Now, you can see this, but he's got a beautiful bow tie. Now, just say, look, there they are. There's the people. Show them your bow tie. Show them your bow tie. But what happened was, this particular collar with the bow tie, he's not very happy about it, but it's got a bell attached to it to stop him from killing animals. But the bell makes such a racket. He doesn't even have to move very much, but it makes such a racket. So basically, all my waking hours, and my sleeping hours really, are spent listening to this noise. That noise. Can you hear that? That noise. Like Father Christmas is trying to get down my chimney. He's not going to succeed, my mercenaries. He's not going to succeed. Then I thought, okay, yeah, Netflix, out of the question. Let's watch YouTube instead. And I'll tell you what I watched. I watched Rabi Massad. What's he called? The guy who's in Dorje with Rob Chapman and does the Andertons videos. He's got a new band called, well, not a new band. It's Dorje, I think, without Rob Chapman, called Tosca. And they released a new song today. Got bloody cat hair on my face now. They released a new song today, video of it. It's like 8 minutes long. It's like a prog rock kind of, to me it's explosions in the sky, kind of post rock, whatever you call it. But I've got to say it's great. So if Rabi was to ever watch this video, I would suggest that you don't do any more music with Rob Chapman. You carry on doing what you're doing, because it's really good and I was genuinely impressed. Anyway, as is the way, I thought I was going to try and, I know this is a time waster, but I thought I was going to try and at least get to the point. I've had a few people now say, be more concise. Concise is as concise does. But I saw a comment. It was Rampface85, right? It's an ongoing situation where we all talk about rock being dead, right? And I mentioned in my last time waster, I mentioned in passing that yes, in some respects, rock is dead. And every time I say that, or anytime anyone says that, people will come back and say, what do you mean? And I agree with you all. Yeah, what does it mean saying rock is dead? And Rampface85 here says, it really annoys me when people say rock is dead. Where's all the guitar bands? They're out there. They never went away. I've been listening to current rock music for 25 years and there's never been a shortage of artists. Sometimes you have to dig, but it's worth it. And that's true. And like I was trying to say to Charles Dow in the last video, the current rock bands are mighty fine. It's like when you've got sports. You'll have a great footballer of the past, and then people want to compare the great footballer of the past to the footballer of the present. And you've got to say, with diet and exercise today, probably any great footballer today is going to be better than any footballer of the past. People get faster, people get stronger, scientists get more intelligent over time, stronger, faster. IQ in a small subset of the human race goes up. On the whole, it's going down. And so many times I hear comments like, the musicians of the past were better than the musicians of today, because the musicians of the past just had record pressed on a tape player and they had to play everything. There was no digital editing. But on the whole, musicians get better. In fact, watching that Tosca video earlier, holy shit. On the whole, musicians get better over time. So when people say the likes of Jimi Hendrix or Led Zeppelin or Black Sabbath or whatever from the 60s and 70s must, just by virtue of being from that era, be better than the bands of today, that's bollocks. You get good and bad musicians back then, and you got good and bad musicians today. So is rock music dead? Look, of course it's not dead. Rock isn't dead. Even when I talk about current rock music like King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, rock is alive and thriving. I went to London, watched The Giz. The Giz, I can say that, The Giz. I mean, I've listened to nearly every album they've ever done. Come on. Go and watch The Giz and look down from the balcony. They're like 4,000 or 5,000 people just writhing. Not sexually, but writhing. Honestly, it's never looked more vibrant. And yet people keep saying, in the media, and people like me sometimes, they keep saying rock is dead. So what do people mean when they say rock is dead? Do they mean there are no rock bands? Is that what they're saying? Because that's not what they're saying, we're mercenaries. So let's have an enforced, short, I'll try and keep this short. It's a time waster, but it's short. Discussion about rock being dead. I'm going to flip over to an article on the BBC. This was published yesterday, and it says, has Stadium Rock been unplugged? And this factors in to the whole is rock dead argument, okay? And it's specifically talking about Wembley Stadium. Now in England, in Britain, sort of the biggest, is it the most prestigious? I mean, you've got the Royal Albert Hall. But I think Wembley Stadium, if you played Wembley Stadium, that's a big deal. You know you're a big band if you play Wembley Stadium. And in fact, the likes of Wembley Stadium are where the concept of stadium rock came from. When you think of stadium rock, you're thinking of Freddie Mercury playing We Will Rock You in the 80s. Stadium rock, U2, stadium rock. Bands that are like ants on the stage with big TV screens behind them. Stadium rock. So this article is talking about Wembley Stadium and how in the 1980s, 61% of bands that played Wembley Stadium were rock. In the 90s, 54%. In the noughties, 58%. In the 10s, 20%. This is, I suppose, financial, and it's a measure of popularity. Because these are the bands that people are prepared to pay to see, and therefore they're the bands that choose to play Wembley Stadium. In the 80s, 61% rock. In the 10s, this decade, 20%. That's quite a shift, 2080 to 60-40. That's quite a shift. And when you ask, well, okay, in the 10s then, what sort of bands, what sort of musicians are we talking about when we talk about pop? Well, as it says above, we're talking about headliners like Taylor Swift, Ed Sheeran, Ariana Grande, that sort of thing, I suppose. So if you're not invested in wanting rock to be alive, if you're not invested in that, and you're just someone in the media looking at the musical landscape, and you see that only 20% of the bands that are playing Wembley Stadium are rock bands, what we're saying here is that the era of stadium rock is over. Pop rules supreme. Pop, hip-hop, it might be out of my comfort zone, But I can see that the likes of Jay-Z and Beyonce, Kanye West, Kendrick Lamar, Ariana Grande, Taylor Swift, Dua Lipa. I see these artists in the mainstream, in the magazines, on the telly, and they're not rock, but they are the biggest thing in the world today. And when we throw bands at each other, sort of trying to come back and say, no, rock's still big, and we throw bands at each other, who are we throwing at each other? If I went into a room of people now and said, who's heard of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, it's going to be a big resounding zero. If I go in there and say, who's heard of Ed Sheeran, Taylor Swift, even the lesser known people, who's heard of, I don't know, who's a lesser known person? I don't know. Well, actually, that brings me on to my next article, okay? Ed Sheeran and Dua Lipa helped British music to record year. This is the thing. In an era when we talk about how music, through streaming, through people not buying physical copies anymore, when we talk about, and certainly for the likes of me, with the sort of music I make, when we talk about not being able to make music anymore, don't be under any misapprehension, don't be under any illusion that the record companies are doing just fine. Because for all the arguments about how it's all falling apart and the internet's destroyed the music industry and bands have been reinvigorated, they can do things themselves, and the record companies are failing all around them like a desolate landscape. Not a chance. The record companies are bigger than ever because British music has had a record year. The most sales ever. A record year. Record year. We've had a better year than when the Beatles were around, or the Stones, or the Who, or Zeppelin. Don't kid yourselves when you tell yourselves that rock is alive. This year is the record year. The year of Ed Sheeran and Dua Lipa. This year is the record year. Ed Sheeran, Harry Styles and Dua Lipa are among those artists who helped propel British music to a record year in 2017. Okay, it's using last year's figures then. So last year, my mercenaries, last year, Sam Smith. Here we go then, the best-selling albums of 2017. Let's see how many of these that we would consider rock. These are the best-selling albums of 2017, okay? Ed Sheeran. Pop. Taylor Swift. Pop. Pink. Pop. Rag and Bone Man. I'm only human after all. I'm only human after all. Don't put the pain on me. Don't put the pain on me. Pop. R&B, I don't know. Sam Smith. Pop. U2. Rock. Stadium rock. Kendrick Lamar. Still got to listen to him. Hip hop. Harry Styles, pop. Bruno Mars, pop. So of the 10 best-selling albums of 2017, we have one rock album. 10% of that chart is rock. The list of the top 50 best-selling albums of 1971 were published in Record Mirror at the end of that year. Cool? Right, so this is the year that Led Zeppelin 4 with Stairway to Heaven was released, so people would say that was a big rock year. So here I have the top 10 best-selling UK albums of that year. So let's just go through. See how alive rock was in 1971. Bridge Over Troubled Water. Thing is, this is what I was saying to, was it Ramp Face? Sorry. Yeah, Ramp Face. Earlier. I was saying now, how do you define rock and pop? Simon and Garfunkel, Bridge Over Troubled Water, pop. Rod Stewart, I'll say rock. Yeah, we could probably get into debates over this. Sticky Fingers by the Stones, rock. Various artists, Motown, well, we'll call Motown pop. T-Rex, Electric Warrior, pop, rock. Oh, see, that's debatable, isn't it? Let me think about that one. T-Rex are pop, really, aren't they? 20th century boy, I wanna be your toy. No, Rock, Stewart, Stones, T-Rex. Ram, Paul McCartney. Pop, Tapestry, Carole King. Pop, Moody Blues. Pop, Andy Williams. Pop, James Taylor. Pop, 30%. 30%. 30% of the chart in 1971 was rock. 10% of the chart today is rock. So even straight popularity wise, does that mean rock is dead? I don't know. I don't know. Let's do one more thing. Let's see in the world. I wanted it to go back further than this, but the best-selling album by year worldwide. So I haven't yet looked at this chart, but we're saying that rock must have been dying for some time if it's now dead. So when we look at 2001 going through to 2017, we should find less rock albums as we progress through time. Let's have a look. 2001, best-selling album was by Linkin Park. Rock, I don't own any Linkin Park, and I've never owned any Linkin Park, but I think rock. 2002, Eminem, hip hop. 2003, Norah Jones, pop. 2004, Usher, don't know, hip hop. 2005, Coldplay, rock. 2006 and 2007, High School Musical. 2008, Viva La Vida or Death and All Its Friends. Never heard it. By Coldplay. Tell you what, you forget how big Coldplay are. Although Chris Martin has stolen some women from my fantasies. Bastard. 2009, Susan Boyle. 2010, Eminem. 12. 11 and 12, Adele. 13, One Direction. 2015, Adele. 16, Beyonce. 17, Ed Sheeran. So the last rock band to have a best-selling album in the world was 2008. 10 years ago. So there hasn't been a best-selling rock album for a decade. Holy shit. It feels like that too. That's not... Am I trying to make out that was a surprise? That's not a surprise. It feels that way. It feels like we haven't had a best-selling rock album for a decade. So that's where Rock is Dead comes from. The biggest selling albums are pop and hip hop. The era of stadium rock is over. So Ed Sheeran, Adele, One Direction are topping the charts, and Taylor Swift, Ed Sheeran, Adele, One Direction are playing Wembley Stadium. But there's still just as many rock bands out there, and there are still people out there wanting to listen to rock music. So I think you just have to take the whole Rock is Dead thing with a pinch of salt. No one's saying that no one's buying rock and no one wants to hear rock. Guitar-based music, drums, bass, singing. But I think when you look at what's popular with the general public, I think that's where it comes from. And interesting, look at the chart of the best-selling albums. If you think about how big Britain is, or England or whatever, Britain, how on a globe, how tiny it is as a little country that I live in here. And you look through this list of, say, the last 10 years from 2008 to today. Holy shit. Coldplay, Susan Boyle, Adele, twice, One Direction, Adele, Ed Sheeran. 70%, 7 times in this decade. This country has had the best-selling album in the world. Holy shit. Let's just go back to Ramp Face's comment again before we close. It really annoys me when people say rock is dead. Where's all the guitar bands? I'm not sure people do say that. Rock is dead. Where's all the guitar bands? I think what we're saying here is that when the media say rock is dead, they are talking about the big money, the big money, the big tours, the Beyoncés and the Kanye Wests and the Taylor Swifts and the Ed Sheerans and the Adeles, the big tours. And when they talk about rock is dead, they're talking about the big albums, the Back in Blacks and the Appetite for Destructions and the Led Zeppelin 4s. Where are they? No one's saying the guitar bands are gone. There's more bands out there than ever before. There's more music out there than ever before. To be honest, and this could be another video in itself, there might be too much music out there. Can there ever be too much music? I don't know. Rampface has been listening to rock music for 25 years and there's never been a shortage of artists. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. But when you look at fashion, when you look at what's on the telly, when you listen to the radio, especially when you listen to the radio, when you look on the views, the high view videos on the internet, when you look at who's playing the stadiums, as we've seen, and who's selling in the charts, rock is dead. Not literally, but yes, it's a turn of phrase. What do you think, my mercenaries? We've covered this topic before a lot, but this is just a casual chat. What do you think? Type down below. Give me your feelings on the topic of rock is dead. Thank you. That was unexpected, wasn't it? Over and